The Grand National runs this Saturday, it's come round again, or does it? It's being threatened by disruption by animal rights activists. They're planning to form a human barricade across the entire Aintree course.
But would making one of the most popular sporting events of the year a target in that way cause more harm than good? Joining us is broadcaster Dawn Neeson, who says protesting in this particular way actually alienates the public you're trying to get on side, while Orla Cochrane from Animal Rising, which used to be called Animal Rebellion, says that this is, in fact, the best way to highlight their cause.
But is it? Because we know, don't we, that Just Stop Oil and other eco groups have announced that they're going to stop blocking roads, stop gluing themselves to roads, they're going to stop climbing gantries over motorways, because they've come to the conclusion that actually, as a tactic, it doesn't work and it alienates public opinion. So they're rethinking their strategy. So why do you think this is the right way to, A, get public support and B, make your point, to actually stop the race?
So first of all, thanks so much for having me.
Pleasure.
We're trying to do two main things by disrupting this race. We care very much about animals, and we're trying to protect those horses by being there on the tracks. And the second thing that we're trying to do is obviously have this big public conversation. For example, I know I'm here today. I'm sure 1 million families are at home having these conversations around breakfast. So I think it is quite an effective way to protest.
What are you trying to protect the horses from, exactly?
Well, we know that every other day a horse dies in horse racing in the UK. And we know that since, I think, the year 2000, there's been over 50 horses died at Aintree alone.
Mm-hmm. How will you actually stop the race? Because you were infiltrated by a national newspaper who got your plans and exposed them. So you've lost the element of surprise. What are you planning to do on Saturday?
So we're going to be turning up outside the gates of Aintree at 9:30 a.m. on Saturday, and we'd encourage any other animal lovers to be there with us.
Yeah, but what about stopping the race? How are you planning to do that?
Well, we're going to be there. I think originally we had about 100 people who would be taking part in this protest, and now we're looking at 300 plus people outside the gates.
So you're going to try and force once the gates are open, you're going to try and force your way onto the course and link arms or glue yourselves together or what?
I'm actually not sure what the exact tactics are going to be on the day.
It's an element of surprise for yourself as well as everybody else.
I'd welcome anyone to come down and be part of it.
But can I just ask you, before, of course, we bring Dawn in, when you see images of horse races, you know, when it's televised and so on, what does it make you think and feel when you see, you know, you've got pictures of it behind you, I don't know if you've got any moving footage, but when you see that, millions of people around the world think, gosh, that's thrilling, who's going to win? I wonder who's going to make the money on that. You know, people are thinking about the sport and the atmosphere and, you know, Her Majesty the Queen was an enormous fan of horse racing, right? So, you know, it's a cultural, national sport. But when you look at it, what do you think?
Well, the first thing I think is that the animals are very beautiful, and I'm very impressed by their speed and what fantastic animals they are. And I think most people in the UK love horses, love animals. And I think people feel like they're connected to animals when they go to events like horse racing. But the real question that it brings up for me is, if we love these animals so much, then why is the only way that we can enjoy them through things like horse racing that harm them so much?
OK, Dawn. Case for racing. I mean, factually, she's right. Racehorses have to be put down. Sometimes they collapse and die, and they get whipped.
Of course. Look, factually, horse racing is not necessarily a good thing for animals, and I think we'd all agree with Orla that no one wants to see animals hurt or put down in any way, shape or form. But over the last 15 years, the equine fatality rate in British racing has fallen by a third, and 62% of injuries to horses happen while they're turned out in a field. Only 13% happen while they're racing. And if Orla's protest is going to be simply standing outside with placards, raising awareness of the injuries that can occur to horses during racing, fair enough. But we know from the newspaper expose that this is not going to be a peaceful protest, that the plan is to invade the racecourse, to go through with bolt cutters, to climb over the fences, to actually get on the course in front of 50,000 very passionate horse racing fans and prevent the actual race from running. I think this is very dangerous for Orla and her colleagues. It's going to antagonise people that they want to get on side, i.e. the people that attend horse racing. And the bottom line here is it's also dangerous for the horses. These are highly trained, highly strung animals who have been primed to run this race. If one of those gets spooked and runs through the crowd with Orla and her colleagues there, and with the other crowd, 50,000 people are going to be there, it's going to be someone is going to get seriously hurt, and potentially a horse will die because of this protest. Orla?
Well, we know the likelihood is that there will be a horse that dies over the course of the races anyway.
Yeah, but not helping it happen is probably a good thing.
Well, it's a completely peaceful protest, and we're not walking on during the races. During the race happening, we're trying to prevent the race from happening in the first place, thus protecting the horses.
What she's saying is they're not going to be doing, what was it, Emily Dickinson, and running in front of a galloping horse. They're going to try and get there before the flag goes down and stop it from starting.
But the horses are there all day. They are wandering around the courses. They are being trained. They're in the training room. The horses are there. This kind of disruption, a very volatile crowd at the best of times. I mean, you know, horse racing at Aintree is almost a religion. People go there. They are very, very supportive of this. And the other thing to say about horse racing is that it raises a lot of money in taxation. I mean, I think it's like, it's several £million. I think it's £30 million gets paid in taxes by the horse racing industry. And the Veterinary Association also fund veterinary care for horses all over the place. And the final thing I want to say about this is, if you stop horse racing, which is impossible, it's such a global thing, if you stop horse racing, what happens to those horses? Are you saying we should stop using all horses for everything?
Well, the thing is,
but
it's a big if, isn't it? I mean, you're not going to stop it. You might. You're playing your cards very close to your chest here this morning. I understand that. But let's say that you're successful in your terms on Saturday and you stop the race from happening, or at least you delay it. Yes, you'll have got publicity, but you'll hack a lot of people off, not just the people at the course, but people watching at home on television. You're not probably going to make very many converts, and you're never going to stop horse racing. You aren't, are you? It's an Everest you're never going to scale.
I just completely disagree. We've moved away from shooting, dog fighting, even bullfighting or bull, bull sports.
Yep.
So I think it's entirely possible. We know from studies from the racing industry themselves that 80% of people under the age of 40 don't go to the races for ethical reasons. So we're really moving away from this anyway, and we're saying, we need to prevent the harm as soon as possible.
So what happens to the horses? If we stop horse racing, what happens to those horses?
Well, I think you and I both know that this is not going to happen overnight. But I'm really glad that you raised this point, because it raises a big question about not only how we treat horses, but how we treat animals in general, through the whole food system. If the only way that we can enjoy animals is through their exploitation, and we can't even imagine a world where horses are not, being used and can live freely. Like, I've never seen a wild horse, but something I would really love to do. And I think we need to be able to at least envisage that for ourselves.
And it's Aintree, obviously now, presumably you've got many more other protests planned, have you? Is it all horse racing venues around the UK should be on high alert now from animal rising?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking this. We're doing kind of two different styles of protests. We're doing the horse racing protest, but we're also going to be doing things like open rescues from factory farms. And that'll be taking animals out of harm and saving them, essentially. And we're doing that because, over 80% of the meat that we eat in the UK is factory farmed.
All right, well, let's...
Can I just ask one final question?
Very quickly, we're over time.
The King's coronation, there are going to be lots of horses used in that. Are you going to be protesting against that?
No, not that I'm aware of.
And why not?
Well, something we could look into, perhaps.
Don't cause trouble, Dawn.
Sorry, King Charles.
Well, look, we ought to say that the Jockey Club, which runs Aintree, has told us, and I quote them, everyone in this industry is involved because they love horses and they work tirelessly to care for them every day. We respect the right for a peaceful protest, but we sincerely hope that Animal Rising will reflect on whether their proposed actions are a legitimate and a responsible form of protest, because their actions could endanger the horses they purport to protect. That's what your point was, Dawn. As well as, of course, the jockeys, the officials and themselves. Thank you both very much.